Ezra Hashem, today's Daf, and is Daf Pei Vov, and we're beginning Pei Hey Umid Beis. We're almost by the Siyum, Be'ezras Hashem of Masechta Nedarim, so you can hang in there. It's a big achievement. So what we're dealing here is the viewpoint of the Mishnah. I'll just point out the Mishnah. This Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri, you can see it on the screen over here. I'm going to make it big. A woman says to her husband, "Ich mach nicht kan supper for you. I'm not making any more supper. Ich mach a neder. You can't benefit from my supper." So Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, "Yafer, the husband should nullify the neder." So Shema Yigarshena, maybe he's going to give her a divorce. Usihi asura olav, and he will never be permitted to remarry her. Now, what basically Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is saying is that a woman really has no right to make a neder.
Not to give to eat to the husband.
Not to give to the husband. The hands are meshubit she has to make the supper. So she says yes, only when she's married to the husband. But then when she gets a divorce from this husband, then the neder will be chal. Okay. After they're divorced, right? If he wants to remarry her again, she now has a neder. She can never make supper for him, so he'll never be able to remarry her. You see, one of the greatest mitzvahs a person could do is a person who gave a divorce to his wife, and then has charuta. They make shulam and they get back together again. So that's important. It's called machzeh grushosa. It's a big mitzvah if it's possible. But
he gets hungry, so he wants to marry her back.
This is the supper. Yeah, but if there's chal if he didn't nullify the neder when she made it, after he's divorced, he can't nullify the neder, and therefore, after they get divorced for the first time, right? Neder takes effect. She can't make supper to this person. So if he decides now he wants to remarry her, he's not going to be able to remarry her, because if they remarry, she comes with a neder not to make supper for the husband. You can't make a neder. So we're up to Pei Hey Amid Beis. And we're starting from about 5 lines from the bottom. But the Gemara dealt with another question, is how could you make a neder? I'm not making supper for you. The supper is dover shalai bo la'olam. That means that she didn't make the supper yet. So how could you make a neder on something that's not existent yet? L'mushal, if a goy says to a lady, "Listen, I'm becoming a yid, so I'm giving you kedushin money. Here's a ring. We should be mukadeshes after I become a yid, after I become a ger." So it's a dover shaloi bo la'olam. He's not a yid yet. It's something that's non-existent yet, so it doesn't work. We Shmuel paskin ein od magdish dover shaloi bo la'olam. So how could at all she make a neder? I'm not giving supper to the husband. Did she make the supper yet? She didn't make the supper yet. So how did the neder take effect in the first place? So Omar Rav Huna bereid Rabbi Yeshua, Rav Huna the son of Rabbi Yeshua said, "Ba'oimeres," when she said, "Yikachu yodai la'oiseihan," she said that my hands should become kadosh. In other words, my hands on my body should be usher to my husband. But the hands are here in the world. The yodayim ha'isnuhu ba'olam. The hands are still existing in the world. So she answered her hands to her husband. So now it's not a dover shalai bo la'olam. Yes, so now that part is not a dover shalai bo la'olam. But we're trying to say that the neder will take effect after she gets divorced. So that's also dover shalai bo la'olam. V'chi amra hachi kacha. First of all, the Gemara asked the question, how could she have a right to make a neder that she's not making supper? Does it work? She's required, her hands are for her husband. She has to make supper for her husband. Answers the Gemara, the Amra Megarsha. because she says, when I get a divorce, that's when the neder should be chal. About the neder cannot be chal. The neder cannot be chal as long as he's alive, as long as they're married, because she's obligated to give. She's obligated to give to the husband the supper. But when she's saying l'chi begarsha, when I give a divorce, that's when the neder should take effect. So the Gemara says, Hashta mias loy megarsha, but right now she's not divorced. How do I know that if she says something like that, it would take effect? What the Gemara is saying is that basically, yes, her hands are here. Her hands are here in this world. And therefore, she can make a neder. But what she's saying is that the neder should take effect after I get a divorce. Well, she's not divorced yet. So how does that work? So the Gemara on Daf Pei Vav Amud Aleph, Omer Rav Ila, that's a Amira, his name and doesn't appear so often, but his name is Rav Ila. He says like this, it does work, because her hands are in this world. Her hands are here. But the time didn't happen yet. That is considered Davar Shabal Olam, because he compares it to like this. Ma ilu man says to his friend, Sada zu shani moichelecha, the field that I'm selling to you. So I own this field, I'm selling it to you. But before I want to let you know, when I buy it back from you, mimcha, from you, tikdish, it should become, I want to make it hegdish. So did he buy it back yet? No. He owns it now. It's in his possession right now, but he's committing that if after I sell it to you, I buy it back, it should become hagdish. Me like katsha, doesn't it work? So that's what basically she's saying. Her hands, this is the same thing what the woman is saying. Her hands are existing in the world. So she's saying when my hands become my own hands and not meshubah to somebody else, then I want it to be aser, my husband, on benefiting from that. And it should work. Just like a man says, the field that I'm about to, my field, which I'm about to sell it to you, when I buy it back, should become hegdish. So the Gemara says that's why it works in our Mishnah. Maskif lo Rab Yirmiyah. So Rab Yirmiyah asked the question, mi dummy. How can you compare? The field that I'm selling to you, hashta bidehi, the whole field is his. The whole field is in his possessions. So he could, it's like there's nothing lien to somebody else. Therefore, he can say, before he sold it, he can say, when I'm going to this field, after I sell it, if I buy it back from you, should become kedushadik. Yes, that could work. But isha biyada lahagdish ma'asiyadeh, can a woman aser, lahagdish means to make hegdish, which it means to aser her hands, the actions of her hands to her husband? Does she have a right to do that? It's not her hands. So she has no right to make the neder in the first place. So again, if she has no right to make the neder in the first place, how is it chal after she would get divorced? Dami, if you wanted to compare it to something, Ella man says to his friend, this field that I'm selling to you. That means I sold it to you already. I sold this field to you. It's not in my possession. I'm saying, and if I buy it back from you, I want to make it holy. Mi kacha, is it holy? In other words, a guy sold the field to somebody. Now it's in somebody's possession. Then he says, so it's not in his possession at all. If he would say, oh, if I buy it back, it should become hegdish. Does it work? Does it work? Of course not, because it's not in the field is not in his possession. It's ready by somebody else, and he didn't buy it back. It's davar shaloi bala olam. Same thing with the woman. This woman doesn't own her ma'asiyadayim. Her ma'asiyadayim is sold to her husband. Her ma'asiyadayim is sold to her husband, and she's saying, when I buy it back, when I'm going to get divorced and I have my possession of my own hands, I want to make it usher. That's davar shalai ba'al. It shouldn't work. Okay. Maskif la Rapapa. Rapapa asked the question, mi dummy. How can you compare this? Me dummy. How can you compare this? How can you compare this? He's trying to say, I'm going to give you a mashal where it works, and that's why it works by the Isha. Gabi Zvina, psika milsayu. The reason why it doesn't work when a person said, this field that I sold to you, when I buy it back, should be hegdish. The reason why it doesn't work that hegdish is because when he sold the field, he totally sold the field. He has nothing in his possession. That's why it doesn't work by the field. By Isha, mi psika milsa, is it an absolute sale? She never sold her hands to her husband. She only sold the production, what her hands produce, to her husband. But the hands itself belong to her, right? And therefore, because the hands belong to her, therefore she can make this type of neder that takes effect after the gerushin, because the hands are davar shabala oilam. If you want a good mashal, a man tells his friends, Sada zu shemishkanti lecha. This field, it belongs to me, but I'm giving it to you as collateral. It's collateral. I took a loan from you, and this field is collateral. If I redeem it, it should be hegdish. Well, the field really, in essence, the deed on that field is still belongs to him. He just put it up as collateral for a loan, let's say. And he's saying, when I redeem and get back my collateral, I want to be magdashit. So therefore, it's still in his possession. Me loy kacha, would that type of thing work? Of course it would work, because the field really belongs to him. Just the timing of when he could take full possession of the field is not yet there. And therefore, it would be kodesh. He could make it hegdish. So again, by the woman also, she, although her hands really belong to her, what she produces with her hands belong to her husband, but her hands are here. It belonged really to her. So therefore, she could say that after I get divorced, whatever my husband cannot benefit from my former husband will not be able to benefit from my cooking. So that should work. That's what the Gemara is saying, and that's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is saying. Okay, let's just take a moment to recap. The problem that we're dealing here, and just so you clearly get where we're going. The problem that we're dealing here, if the woman said, I'm not making supper for my husband, the question is, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is basically saying it could take effect. This neder could take effect, not while they're married, but it could take effect if they would get divorced. If they would get divorced, then automatically she'd not be able to produce a supper for her former husband. That's what Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said. And therefore, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri suggested that the husband right away nullifies such a neder. So the Gemara is dealing with, it's a davar shalai ba'al olam. They're not divorced yet. So how can you make a neder on something that did not happen yet? So the Gemara is saying right now, and up until now, is since her hands are in her possession, her hands belong to her. Although the production while she's married, what she produces with her hands belong to her husband, but her hands, in essence, exist right now. So she could, in essence, in theory, make a neder that should take effect after she gets divorced, when she totally controls her own hands and what she produces with her hands. So the Gemara says, Maskif lo Rav Sheshis. Rav Shesha Bereid Rav Idi asked another question. Me dummy. How can you compare this? Sada, when a man gives a field as a collateral for a loan, right? And you're saying that he could say that when I redeem the collateral, I wanted to take a hegdish. It works, right? But Sunday, biyade leftaise, every field that you put up as collateral, if you come up with the money, you can get the field back. So it's up to you to decide when you want that field back. So basically, it's quasi in your possession already, even though it's put up as collateral, but you have the rights to take it back at any time. Isha biyodei. Does a woman have in her possession to take back to get divorced, to take control of her hands completely? Damya, this is not compared. A man says to his friend, so the Gemara comes up with the perfect example. This is what we're talking about over here. Why it works in our case. If a man has a field and puts it up as collateral for a loan that he took, and he says, I'm never taking back this collateral for 10 years, right? For the first 10 years, I can't take back this collateral. But he's saying that when I get it back, it should be Tigdish. When I get it back, the field should belong to Hegdish. Me like Kacha doesn't belong to Hegdish. It works because the field in essence belongs to him. He just can't take it back for the first 10 years, but his words take effect so that when he does get it back, it could effectively become Hegdish right then and there because of what he said. So the same thing over here. Eventually, her hands are going to belong to her after she gets divorced, right? Right now, the production of her hand belongs to her husband. But eventually, if her husband would give her a divorce, she owns everything from her hands. Therefore, she can say right now, right when she's married to him, that when I get divorced, I will never give supper to my ex-husband. And of course, it should take effect. Maskif or Ravashi asked the obvious question, me dummy. How do you compare the case in our Mishnah to the case with a field that you can't redeem it for 10 years? Hasam over there, kits, there's a finite amount of time where you're guaranteed that he's going to get the field back. Maybe for the first 10 years, there's a lock. He can't get the field back, but after 10 years, if he wants, he can redeem the field. Isha mi'is lekitsutsa. Does every woman have a finite time that you can say that after these couple of years, I'm going to get divorced? It's not even up to her to get a divorce. So therefore, again, the Gemara struggles. How could Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri say that a woman, while she's married, could say a neder that she's never making supper for her husband? Certainly, it doesn't take effect now because she's obligated to give for her husband. Yet it should take effect after they get divorced. How could it be? It's davar shalai bala olam. We go to Peivav Mabeis. Very simple. Ella Omer Ravashi. Ravashi comes up with the final understanding of our Mishnah. That means really, really a woman, and this should be shocking to you, a woman who's married would have the power to make a neder not to make supper for her husband. And it would take effect because the power of a neder could just override a lien. The husband has a lien, so to speak, on his wife's hands that she has to make supper for him. But if she would make a neder, answering her husband from whatever she produces with her hands, it would override the husband's rights. And technically, she would be usher to make she should be usher to make supper for her husband. So the Gemara is going to next question, if that's the case, that her neder can override a lien, then why did Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri say that you should nullify this neder because maybe you're going to get divorced? Right now, she can't make supper for him. He should nullify it right now. So the answer is, technically, it does fall. In theory, the neder does work. But Chachamim gave a power to the husband, so to speak, to block the neder. That means that technically it should override, but the Chachamim gave a power to the husband to block that override. But if it wasn't for that Chachamim power, this neder would take effect right now. So therefore, after they get divorced, the husband doesn't have that power anymore to block the neder from falling, and therefore it falls after the gerushin. So basically, to visualize it, and that's where we're visual Daf Yomi, when a woman makes a neder, she's not making supper for her husband, it doesn't disappear. Actually, the neder is starting to fall. The Chachamim gave a power to the husband to block it from falling, but it continues to fall. And once the husband divorces her, it just drops and falls and takes effect. So it's always there, that neder. And that's how Rav Ashi explains it. Sha'anu kainamos, a neder is very different. It's like making something totally holy, ukudarava, like Rava said. Rava gives you an example. Let's say I have an animal. I borrowed money from somebody. And I said, I can't pay you. Use my animal as collateral. If I don't pay you, you can keep the animal. And then I go ahead and while you're holding on to the collateral, I said, oh, by the way, I'm making this animal hegdish. I'm making this animal a carbon. That means you override the lien that guy has on my animal. I overridden the lien he has on my animal because making something hegdish with your mouth overrides the lien. That's what Rava said. The Amar Rava said, hegdish, if you make something holy, it overrides a lien. Same thing with chametz. Chametz can override a lien. How do you have a lien on chametz? If I borrow money from a goy and I put up my chametz as collateral, and then I didn't sell the chametz, the chametz was in my possession. I said, my chametz in my house should be a lien on the loan that I took you, Mr. Goy. And then Pesach passes, and that's chametz she'aval of a Pesach, which becomes asa bahano, which you can't benefit from. So that overrides the lien that the goy had on my chametz. And if we had Jewish laws, the Jewish court would block the goy from collecting on my chametz because it's chametz she'aval olav a Pesach. V'shichrur. What happens? Freeing a slave. Let's say, again, I borrow money and I put up my slave as collateral. And that's okay. So the guy says, I'll lend you the money with the slave as collateral. And then I go ahead and free the slave. So I override his collateral. His collateral disappears. So all these things are basically mafkia midei shibud, could override a lien. So the Gemara says, basically, when the woman whose hands are lean to her husband, that means she's required to make supper for her husband. If she says, I make a neder, my husband cannot benefit from whatever I produce with my hands, that would override the lien, so to speak, that the husband has, or her responsibility to make supper for the husband. And therefore, technically, it should work. So the Gemara asked, if it works, why doesn't it work right away? Why do you have to wait that this neder takes effect after they get divorced? It should take effect right away. So the Gemara says, we should learn it this way, that really it should take effect right away. But even if you want to say that the Chachamim gave a power that no woman should be able to make a neder not to make supper for her husband, so the Chachamim gave a superpower to the husband to block that neder from falling, but that only works while the husband is there. After you remove the husband, then the neder falls. And therefore, in our case, that's why Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri advised the husband to make a nullification. So the bottom line to understand our Mishnah is, a woman made a neder, I'm not making supper for my husband. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri said, the reason why it works is because she's not asering the supper, she's asering her hands from producing supper. So that is not davar shalai ba'olam. That's still not something non-existent that exists in this world. So the neder would take effect. But how does it take effect? It technically should take effect right away, because her neder should override the husband's lien on her hands, so to speak. But Chachamim gave a power that the husband could block the neder from taking effect right away. But if the husband would divorce her, the neder would take effect. That's why Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri advised that the husband should nullify this neder. so that if case he divorces her, the neder shouldn't be there, which because she doesn't have that neder, that will give him another chance to remarry her because she won't have that neder of not making supper for her. Okay, that ended that piece of Gemara and that piece, and let's just do the Mishnah, and then we'll stop. It's a very simple Mishnah. Okay, we said that a man can nullify his wife, right? A man can nullify his wife's neder, and he can nullify his daughter's neder, right? A father can nullify his daughter's neder. Now, sometimes your wife and daughter have the same voice. So therefore, the halacha, the Torah says that you have to know which person made the neder. So let's say the Mishnah says, Nadra Ishta, your wife made a neder, v'savar, but you think it should Nadra Bita, that your daughter made the neder. And so sometimes you didn't want your daughter to have the neder, and your wife you're okay with. Again, so you thinking that your daughter made the neder, but really it was your wife who made the neder, but they sound alike. Nadra Bita, let's say your daughter made the neder. V'savar, and you think Shnadra Ishta, and your wife made the neder, and you nullified it, but you nullified the neder, but you nullified it without knowing the right person who took the neder. Another example. So that's example number one. Example number two that the Mishnah says, let's say your wife made a neder, and you know she made the neder, but Nadra ben Nazar. She made a neder that she wants to be a Nazar. That means she's not going to drink wine, she's not going to go to a funeral, she's not going to take a haircut, right? V'savar, and you think Shenadra b'karbon, that she just assered herself on wine. You didn't know she made herself a Nazir. So you nullified the neder, but you didn't get the neder correct. Nadra b'karbon, she made a neder on not to drink wine. She assered herself wine. V'savar, you think Shenadra b'nazir, that she made a neder on Nazir, so that she made herself a Nazir. So again, you know who made the neder, but you got the neder wrong. You got it. It's similar, because you think she made a Nazir neder, and really she only assered herself wine, and you nullified it. So these are called nullification by accident. A nullification, but not clearly done correctly. Or another example, Nadra mita'enim. A woman made a neder, she's not eating figs. V'savar, and you think Shenadra min hanavan, that she made a neder not to eat grapes. So you know the person who made the neder, but you totally got the item that she made the neder. You know she made it on a fruit, but you got the wrong fruit. You thought that she made it on grapes, and really she made it on figs. Or Nadra min hanavim, if she made a neder on grapes, V'savar Shenadra min hata'enim, and you think she made it on figs. So you got the neder totally wrong. You got the neder totally wrong, and you would nullify that neder. The answer is it's not a good nullification. And therefore, let's say a week later you find out the correct neder that she made, or the correct person that made the neder, whether it was your wife and or daughter, even though it's a few days later, that becomes the new day that you find out about the neder. That becomes the B'yom Shammai. And therefore, that day you have a right to, even though it's a few days later, but this is the first time you get the story straight. You have to redo the hafara, the nullification, because the nullification that you did in the first place is done incorrectly. And therefore, since you didn't hear the neder, who made the neder, or what the neder was about, you have to redo the hafara. And this probably holds true to be mekayim a neder. In order to confirm a neder, you have to have the person and the neder straight. You can't confirm it just in the air. You have to have the whole story straight. And this is derived from psukim. So that ends tonight's daf.